In a lot of bars, you can actually get your whiskey smoked now. You have this little device that you put on top of your glass that has already been pre-filled with whiskey, put in some wood chips, and then a butane lighter pushes all the smoke down into the glass. This woodworking project in particular is something that really sparked my channel, grew things incredibly quickly, and a lot of people have been selling this exact design all across the country and even the world. It's a very, very simple thing. It's just a piece of wood, you put in some chips, and then it pushes down the smoke into the glass. The things that are really important with this is that you really need to have very good chips. I make these in the wood shop and I'll get into that in a little bit, as well as a butane lighter, because the force of this lighter is what is pushing all the smoke down into the glass. Now, there's a lot of different opinions on what you should finish these with and how you should set them up and how to even sell them. And that's what we're jumping into today. In the past, I've just had a few different guidelines about what designs to use and how to sell them in markets, but today we're going to be going over this new display that I have. It's made out of MDF, it's incredibly cheap, as well as this demo board. This is something that I absolutely love. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it's so cool to finally see it in person. First and foremost, let's go ahead and focus on this brand new display stand. It holds 16 whiskey smokers, 2 of which are currently on here, made of a material that you should absolutely never use when making whiskey smokers, and we'll be getting into that in a little bit. But this material that we use for this stand is just regular old MDF. There's absolutely no fasteners that are a part of this, which makes it so that it is not really rock stable, but definitely stable enough for a market, and something that flat packs down into 5 different pieces and just slots over itself so that you can throw this into a bucket at the end of the day and you can have this all set up for your market. As you can see, it flat packs down very nicely, and this design is specifically for whiskey smokers, although in a few weeks I'm going to have this as well as a few other market display items that you can quickly make out of 1/2-inch MDF to really spruce up your setup overall. Now, like I said, there's absolutely no fasteners that are used in this, and it's really just about making sure that you're clearing the next level, because we really wanted to be able to create 3 distinct levels that you could put your whiskey smokers. We've got a few different designs in the past. If you haven't seen my video, it'll be linked down below. It covers a ton of different information on the designs themselves and all about pricing and all that kind of stuff. But today we're going to be focused on a booth and how you can present your product in the best way to be able to get sales. I really wanted to make sure that the stand was something that really showed off the products well without having a ton of different empty spaces to fill. I know that creating product can be really daunting when you don't know how much to create of something, especially because you don't want to create a ton of different products and nothing sell and bring them back to your shop not having anything to do with them. So I feel like 12 was a really good number to start off with, and it also is a great amount to be able to show off to a customer that you are fully stocked and ready to be able to show off your product without overwhelming them or underwhelming them with the amount. I feel like 12 is the right way to go. This is a really great way to show off your whiskey smokers no matter how you make them. So you can have them as the chimney, they're still going to fit in here. You can have them with a 1/4-inch roundover on the top and the bottom, and they're still going to sit in here snugly. Or as I sell them, you can have them where they're completely straight edged, they're 90-degree angle from the top to the bottom, and they are still going to index in here and fit quite nicely. Now, this is the material that you should absolutely never use to create whiskey smokers. This is called Bamcor, and I absolutely love this stuff. I've been using it in the shop like crazy, and it is the perfect material for so many things except for whiskey smokers. Now, when I first saw it, I thought this is the way to go because it comes in a sheet. It is 3/4 inches thick, and then the top has this really nice toasted bamboo to it. And that's the issue. This is made out of 100% bamboo, and it also has a ton of adhesive in it as well. But the reason that I've always stuck to white oak is because that really tells the story of whiskey overall. At least here in the United States, whiskey is barreled in white oak barrels, which is why I've always stuck to white oak right here. Now, in the past, I've talked about how I finish things with mineral oil, food grade, of course, and that is what I've always stuck with, and that is what I still use. But in the past, I got a lot of flack for saying that mineral oil was used in fog machines, which is a fact that I was told my entire life, and then I fact-checked it very quickly, of course, and I didn't see anything wrong with it until I posted the video, and then people who know way more about fog machines than me quickly threw down the gauntlet saying that, yeah, mineral oil is not used in fog machines and it should not be. I'm not afraid to say when I'm wrong, but I think that mineral oil is still a really great way to go about this. I know that a ton of people don't finish these at all. They just have bare white oak or bare walnut or anything that they're making this out of, and it still sells really well. And jumping into that, you don't have to make these out of white oak. Yes, bamboo is something that I would stay away from, but you could use maple, you could use cherry, you could use walnut, you could use red oak. I would stay away from exotic woods and really make sure that you hone in on stuff that is going to be hardy and really stand up to the heat. So I would stay away from poplars and pines, especially because it has rosin in it and it's really going to flame up and it's going to create a whole different experience than you're looking for. Whereas I really do think that white oak gives you the optimal experience for a whiskey smoker. White oak is very expensive, so if you're looking for something else, maybe cherry is a good alternative. But like I said, I would definitely stay away from your softer woods because you do want it to stand up to the heat. This whiskey smoker that I just demoed for y'all is the exact same one that I first ever demoed a whiskey smoker for. I have hit this thing hundreds of times with a butane lighter and it is still on its exact same first stainless steel mesh that I put in there, and it is still standing strong. All those ashes are actually quite an issue when you've set up your market booth and you have a nice tablecloth down. You can end up burning a lot of holes in it, which brings us to our second project. Now, this demo board is a creation that I have been really wanting to make for a very long time. First and foremost, it is made out of bamboo, which is the exact same bamboo material that I just told you not to make whiskey smokers out of, but it turns out that it is a really great material for a demo board. So much so that I think that it is distracting from the actual whiskey smokers. So if you wanted a much more cost-effective way of doing this, I would use 3/4 inch MDF and then just spray paint the entire top black so that all of these different parts are really shining through with the color of MDF. And I think it is going to be more than fine and really show off the whiskey smokers, even more so than this does. I think that this looks great for maybe a store display, but for the market, I think honestly it's probably a little bit of an overkill. But regardless, these files are going to be available for all of you CNC with me members alongside the whiskey smoker display board, not only in Carveco and Vectric files, but also SVG and DXF. And I'm going to be having a toolpath tutorial for these as well. So when you set up in a market, obviously you can have just your whiskey smokers just alone on a table. But in order to make things a little bit better, you have your display board over here, and then you have your demo board in front of you. This really shows off the product a whole lot more and is way more inviting for people to come into your booth. If you take your whiskey smoker that you can tell people, hey, I've used this hundreds of times, bring this in and show that it is still useful. You can bring all of your little tiny wood chips that you make in your own wood shop. I make mine by using a planer. I just send good lumber through a planer and then take the chips. You can easily do that with a handheld planer as well. It really depends on the type of wood that you're using and the type of chips that actually come out of it. So white oak is going to give you much smaller chips. These chips right here are made out of maple. It gives some really nice long stringy chips, and I think they produce some really good smoke as well. So as you're talking with people and bringing them in, you can show them how well the whiskey smoker actually works. You can talk about the butane lighter, and then everybody's just going to be staring at this anyways. So as you're going through all the details, you can tell people that's as long as it takes. You let it sit on top of your whiskey for a few moments, and then afterwards you take that off and you're left with a glass filled with smoke and your smoked whiskey. Blow that out, go ahead and take a drink, and it's really as simple as that. This is a really great way to bring people in. The smell of the smoke is going to travel and people are going to smell that, come on over, and then you're going to have to do another demo. The demo board is comprised of a few different areas. As you can see right here, we have a bunch of different slots to be able to fit a bunch of different things. In the very center, we have our area where we put our glass, and as you can see, the entire thing is just shaped as one big whiskey smoker. Depending on how you have this oriented, you could really change up the text and shift this around in any way that you want, but after about 6 different iterations of this design, I found that this one is going to be the most helpful. Most tables at a market are really only going to be this wide, so you might want to have it sideways, but if you didn't have a ton of room, you could flip this over. Customers could come over and grab some of the whiskey smokers that you have facing towards them. You could be right here showing off your entire show, and they could just interact with things in front of them. You would throw a glass, any old glass is going to work down here, put on your whiskey smoker, and then just constantly, time and time again, come in here, torch things up, and show them how it works. The really nice part is, as you're making things, all of these little embers are going to jump down, and as long as you have a nice piece of hardwood, or like I said, MDF, it's going to catch it a whole lot more than your tablecloth is going to. I can't tell you how many people have gotten in touch with me telling me that their tablecloth was burnt to crisps, but they ended up selling a bunch of whiskey smokers. And I think that that's something that's really important as well. People are still selling these. People are still paying off their CNC machines with these. No, online is completely saturated at this point. That last video that I put out got 1.5 million views or something like that. And if you go online, this design is absolutely everywhere and saturated. But locally, it is still definitely not oversaturated. There's a ton of people that get in touch with me telling me that they use these specific files to be able to pay off their CNC machines. And honestly, those are the people that I'm making this video for. I know that there's always going to be naysayers and doubters, but the people who are out there creating projects themselves, putting them in front of people and taking the time to show off how these things work are the people who are going to sell them. If you're not interacting with your customers and you're not showing off how they work, it's going to be really hard for a customer to interact with you. I found that people, when they go to markets, they are absolutely ready to buy something. They want to buy something, and oftentimes they leave thinking everything was too expensive or there was nothing that I could see myself giving somebody or using myself, so they leave empty-handed. Most people out there want to purchase something, and this really falls in that impulse purchase category, that they can see somebody that they're going to be giving this to, so it's an easy purchase. If it's your very first show and you're trying to bring whiskey smokers, I personally would recommend bringing about 24 of them, because the truth is, if you have this thing set up and there's only 4 whiskey smokers on it, people probably aren't going to be going and grabbing those things as quickly as they would a full rack. It is the beginning of September, and traditionally on the channel I have done Make Timber. The very first year was incredibly tiring. The second year really didn't pan out the way that I thought that it would have. So this year I am taking a step back, although every single Friday in September we are going to be talking about displays or projects that are specifically meant to sell at markets. So if you're interested in more of that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Liking this video is honestly really appreciated. It shows YouTube that it is worth pushing out to the masses. If you have any questions about whiskey smokers, price points, anything like that, I definitely covered way more in that last video, and I didn't just want to repeat all of that. This one is more specifically about how to set up your booth and how to sell these yourself, and I think that this is a really great start for people who might not know exactly where to begin. Check these out. Like I said, they're available to all CNC With Me members, and if you are a CNC With Me member, thank you so much. You're the reason that this channel exists in the first place and is able to continue. I really do appreciate every single one of y'all. Originally, I set up the studio lights so that it'll be a little bit moody, and that light right there is supposed to be like a fire flicker, you know, for the whiskey smokers, but I don't know, did it just look like a broken light the entire time, or did it look cool? I don't know if it looked cool or not, but it's in the video now. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all next Friday. Bye.